because everybody has an opinion, number one. Number two, I get paid for mine. Number three, and most importantly, it's my opinion based on the facts as presented. I'm not getting personal. I'm not deriding or denigrating anybody. I'm just calling it like I see it when asked.
You have to give tremendous credit to Manny at his age for him to have performed the way he did against a much younger man.
According to Stephen A. Smith, Pacquiao did more than enough to take it over Mario Barrios. He's hammering the judges for a result he views as a robbery because, to him, Manny clearly outshined Barrios.
Manny, the fans came out for you again tonight, but describe what you thought of the judge's decision.
I thought I won by split decision.
When the closing bell echoed through the arena and the judges lifted their pens to finalize the scores, it seemed less like the conclusion of a brutal contest and more like some absurd punchline from the universe itself. Stephen A. Smith, seated firmly in his commentator's chair, leaned back with fire in his eyes as he unleashed a torrent of criticism on the verdict. In his view, the arithmetic simply didn't hold water, the calculations were utterly flawed, and Manny Pacquiao had been blatantly deprived of a rightful win right there in front of everyone. Buckle up, folks, because this isn't some gentle discussion. It's a full-throttle verbal assault that pulls no punches. Stephen A. wasn't one to hold back or sugarcoat his thoughts. He dismissed the typical back-and-forth banter that fills the airwaves, emphasizing that while everyone has the right to their own perspective, certain viewpoints hit harder than others. His own opinions struck with the impact of a demolition tool aimed squarely at the judge's reliability and judgment. He highlighted Pacquiao's intricate footwork, the sharp precision of his strikes, and the masterful control of the ring that evoked memories of the Filipino icon in his absolute prime. All these elements combined to form a display that should have guaranteed a decisive triumph. However, the officials somehow interpreted the action through a different lens entirely.
He said when we were on the phone talking, Manny Pacquiao said, I'm a congressman. I have opportunities after boxing is over.
He labeled it an outright theft, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There was no embellished rhetoric or theatrical prelude, just the unfiltered reality as he perceived it. Certainly, Barrios was the one holding the championship belt going into the bout, but Pacquiao commanded the squared circle from the very first clang of the bell. Each jab that connected cleanly, every clever angle he maneuvered into, and all the combinations that ignited the enthusiasm of the MGM grand audience. It all screamed for a victory declaration. Nevertheless, the judges, with their notepads and scoring systems, compiled their tallies and announced a draw that reverberated globally like a poorly timed jest. Stephen A. made it abundantly clear that his commentary harbored no personal grudges. He wasn't casting aspersions on the combatants themselves or delving into potential ulterior motives. This was fundamentally about upholding the sanctity of how fights are scored in high-stakes title bouts. When enormous sums of money are at stake and the trajectories of storied careers hang precariously in the balance, those responsible for the decisions must deliver accuracy without fail. He underscored the harsh truth that athletes in this sport rely heavily on impartial rulings.
I'm a congressman. I have opportunities after boxing is over. This is all that he does. He literally said,
a single erroneous call can derail an entire professional path, disrupt lucrative opportunities down the line, and alter the annals of boxing history forever. Seated behind the broadcast desk, Pacquiao's own brother appeared utterly shell-shocked. Here was a close family member witnessing the unfolding drama as if in agonizing slow motion, firmly believing that their kin had done more than enough to secure the win. Murmurs of inquiry floated through the commentary booth. What exactly were those judges observing? They could only shrug in resignation and accept the outcome as it stood. The unforgiving nature of boxing requires participants and observers alike to internalize even the most bitter pills, no matter how acrid they taste. Yet, their expressions of astonishment were impossible to conceal. In the labyrinthine aftermath of the fight, an emerging talent by the name of Kermal Mahdi shared his thoughts on the matter. He openly confessed that he believed Pacquiao had clinched the victory convincingly, only for the judges to etch a draw into the record books.
You look like a 46-year-old tonight. How did you feel inside the ring?
I feel good.
Discussions of a potential rematch hadn't surfaced yet, the momentum had evaporated, and the opportunity seemed firmly shut. This situation highlighted the brutal essence of the sport. At times, even the most legendary figures find the threads of fate slipping irretrievably from their grasp. Supporters inundated social media platforms with their reactions. A particular post from BKS Secrets lambasted the ruling, quickly gaining viral traction and triggering a cascade of online discourse. The comments sections overflowed, inquiries about the absence of knockdowns, the lack of defining moments that could sway the scores.
As for Manny, just advice from him at all. Just be healthy and do what you think you can do. It's a hard thing to.
Observers insisted they had witnessed Pacquiao outmaneuver and outwork Barrios consistently from the opening to the closing rounds. They referenced statistical data on punches landed, dominance in controlling the ring's space, and the overall tempo of the bout. Every quantifiable indicator pointed toward a clear-cut win. Despite this, the official scorecards painted an entirely contradictory picture. Even those who followed the sport more casually contributed their insights. Positioned ringside, they meticulously followed each exchange, documenting the action round by round, taking note of instances where Manny delivered sharp, effective counters that compelled Barrios to backpedal. They expressed awe at how Pacquiao, at the remarkable age of 46, exhibited movement reminiscent of a much younger athlete. They bemoaned the apparent oversight by the judges, as if the veteran's speed and cunning had somehow escaped their notice. It was akin to observing a timeless automobile gliding smoothly past, while the scorers fiddled absent-mindedly with their devices. Expert analysts delved into slow-motion replays and paused frames to present their evidence. They emphasized Pacquiao's seasoned strategies, his effective use of southpaw positioning to create openings, and the explosive sequences of punches that electrified the spectators. Certain rounds appeared so overwhelmingly in Pacquiao's favor that it prompted questions about whether the judges were even viewing the same event. A growing agreement emerged. The mechanisms for scoring in boxing require a fundamental revision if such glaring oversights continue to occur. A linked video clip from YouTube, specifically from 0:55-1:02 in the provided URL, captured some of these heated moments. Behind the curtain of the event, insiders in the boxing community murmured about possible prejudices, the influences exerted on judges in a place like Las Vegas.
Your thoughts on Manny Pacquiao's retirement?
One of the greatest fighters we've ever seen. Never ran from anybody. Had completely respected the sport of boxing.
And how prominent names can sometimes tip the scales unfairly. But Stephen A. steadfastly avoided entertaining such speculative conspiracies. He anchored his arguments to verifiable observations, the concrete proof of Pacquiao's command over the fight's flow and his pinpoint striking accuracy. He declined to soften the edges of his assessment, even if it meant venting frustration directly into the broadcast microphone. In the meantime, retired title holders such as Fernando Vargas expressed their concurrence. They conceded that Pacquiao no longer embodied the ferocious destroyer from his earlier days, yet they couldn't overlook the sheer determination he displayed. Round after round revealed glimpses of a fighter who had once conquered an astonishing 8 weight classes. Vargas commended the unyielding drive that propelled Pacquiao to push beyond what anyone anticipated. The declaration of a draw sent shockwaves throughout the broader boxing landscape. Who truly gains from such an inconclusive result? For Pacquiao, the prospect of claiming an unprecedented 8th divisional crown evaporated into thin air. For Barrios, his standing as a legitimate champion suffered a blow. Enthusiasts began to doubt whether the belt holder had even earned his position, especially considering what many perceived as a lackluster and defensive showing. The overall trustworthiness of the sport balanced precariously on the brink. Across various online networks, the sentiment Pacquiao was robbed surged to trending status almost immediately. Humorous memes proliferated rapidly. One depicted a judge dozing off at their station, another illustrated the scorecards as worthless play currency from a board game. The response blended amusement with genuine indignation, a widespread cultural event that illustrated how the theatrics of boxing extend well beyond the confines of the ropes. Seasoned commentators dissected the strategic intricacies of the matchup. They acclaimed Pacquiao's deceptive feints that lured opponents into mistakes.
But I'm surprised that the decision is like that, you know. I'm surprised, but anyway, the judges and decision is now. Let's accept. We will accept that decision.
His agile foot adjustments that opened up advantageous positions, and his impeccable sense of timing that effectively claimed rounds. They drew comparisons to Barrios' more linear striking approach, which often faltered against Pacquiao's evasive defenses. The prevailing story was unmistakable. The defending champion found it difficult to connect with significant blows, whereas Pacquiao orchestrated the bout's cadence with authority. And yet the judges' notations failed to reflect that storyline. Could it have been due to subtle aspects invisible to raw data, such as an intangible sense of ring command that defies statistical capture? Or perhaps a rigid preference for heavy-hitting power over consistent output and precision? Stephen A. challenged these entrenched beliefs head-on. He called for explicit standards. What exact guidelines do officials apply when evaluating premier championship encounters? Promoters in the boxing world paused in anticipation. The glitz and glamour of events in Las Vegas drive ticket sales and viewership, but if the audience's confidence in the judging process erodes, the entire structure could crumble.
Feel that you have what it takes to be a world champion once again?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I can still do it. For 2 months training, 4 years lay off, and then 2 months training, like, you know, it's not bad. Like, if you're not boxing, like,
Corporate backers pondered the wisdom of continued investment if results appear manipulated. Competitors might think twice about staging comebacks if they suspect inherent unfairness. For a discipline founded on principles of honor and bravery, this tied verdict resonated like a malfunctioning alarm. In the midst of the turmoil, Pacquiao himself offered a brief statement. He inclined his head in respect, providing no alibis or complaints. He addressed the inevitable queries about his advancing years, the skepticism surrounding his abilities, and the sheer improbability of his output at this stage. He extended praise to Barrios for his resilience in the face of adversity. Following that, he remained quiet, allowing the public to form their own conclusions. His modest demeanor stood in stark opposition to the unyielding nature of the judge's pronouncement. In training facilities scattered across the globe, coaches revisited the fight's key moments on video. They demonstrated to their pupils how a battle-hardened veteran like Pacquiao employs positional advantages to counter raw strength. They illustrated the ways in which superior foot placement and split-second timing can equalize matchups against fresher, more youthful adversaries. For numerous observers, the educational value derived from the technical aspects far surpassed the uproar generated by the draw.
Oh, it's a draw. Awful.
It's a draw?
Yeah.
Majority draw.
Yeah.
Majority draw. So what is... Oh,
go on.
So what, like, I mean...
But it just shows you, that's got everything to do with Mario Barrios. With all due respect, like, you know, imagine what Brian Norman.
Nevertheless, disputes like this invigorate ongoing dialogues. Speculation about favoritism toward local fighters by the judges circulated widely. Historical tales from Las Vegas recalled heavyweight clashes decided with apparent hometown advantages. This particular draw evoked recollections of those infamous episodes. While Stephen A. dismissed such notions outright, he permitted the whispers to gain some traction, if only to emphasize the urgent necessity for systemic improvements. Come the following morning, programs on sports networks allocated full segments to meticulously analyzing rounds 8 through 11. These were deemed the pivotal swings by some experts, where the judges reportedly favored Barrios in each. Stephen A. presented the footage, halting at critical junctures, and exclaimed with disbelief, "Are you serious?" His tone of incredulity resonated as if channeling the frustrations of countless viewers. At the same time, longtime enthusiasts harkened back to Pacquiao's heyday, demolishing rivals with lightning-fast assaults and devastating flurries. They informed newer audiences that even a diminished version of such an icon retains an indelible spark. The previous evening's showing, they contended, served as evidence that true excellence imprints itself eternally on a boxer's essence.
I thought, you know, it was a close fight where it could have went either way, but Pacquiao looked good, man. Pacquiao looked good for those first, 8 rounds. He looked real good.
Certain doubters suggested that Pacquiao had taken it easy in the initial stages, conserving stamina for the latter portions. They argued that Barrios' higher level of engagement justified the draw. Stephen A. ridiculed this interpretation. He directed attention to the compiled punch statistics, which demonstrated Pacquiao's superior precision outweighing Barrios' sheer quantity. He confronted the naysayers directly. Are we to believe the data is deceptive? Following the event, terms like fraud in boxing re-emerged in online forums. Enthusiasts discussed the merits of making judges' scores visible to all, with cards revealed immediately after each round concludes. Stephen A. endorsed this push for openness, asserting that instantaneous visibility would enforce responsibility and mitigate the fury that erupts after bouts. Alternative suggestions included incorporating impartial officials from varied governing bodies or cycling through different judging teams to mitigate regional prejudices. The contentious draw served as a spark for earnest conversations about the trajectory of the sport. Stephen A. hammered home the point: if a figure as iconic as Pacquiao can be denied justice so evidently, who among the fighters is truly secure? Those considered underdogs drew motivation from Pacquiao's effort. They recognized that accumulated wisdom and tactical acumen could stand toe-to-toe with youthful energy and physical prowess. They garnered strength from his rejection of age as a limiting factor. Despite the inconclusive result, his underlying message was resounding: compete with unbridled passion, and your efforts will endure in memory. As experts parsed the repercussions, a singular reality crystallized. Pacquiao's reputation ascended to new heights. The surrounding debate only magnified his storied status. Each reference to the draw reinforced recollections of his brilliance.
No body work for Mario. You know, he wasn't consistently going to the body, and I thought he left a lot in the ring. He left a lot in the corner.
In an ironic twist, the official's misstep etched his display into immortality. Stephen A. acknowledged this paradox with a knowing grin. It's impossible to strip a true icon of their enduring impact. In changing rooms and family dens alike, discussions turned to what lay ahead. Ought Pacquiao to hang up the gloves following such a tie? Should he pursue a second encounter, risks notwithstanding? Stephen A. pondered that a follow-up bout might prove even trickier to adjudicate equitably. He encouraged those in charge to explore a matchup pitting established champions against one another, something devoid of ambiguity. Yet the world of boxing rarely provides tidy resolutions. It flourishes amid uncertainty and contention. The draw from the night before perpetuated that long-standing custom, whether for good or ill. Stephen A. wrapped up his impassioned discourse with a parting shot. Viewpoints may vary, but objective truths persist. And the truth here is that Manny Pacquiao performed sufficiently to claim victory. Any alternative interpretation dishonors the very essence of the sport. Concurrently, those steering the promotional side of boxing hustled to adjust their storytelling tactics. Revenue from televised events relied on assurances of high drama and conclusive resolutions. A tie, especially one perceived as outright larceny, posed a risk of alienating the fanbase. Marketing experts in the field pivoted strategically, capitalizing on the uproar as a promotional hook. Witness the judging controversies unfold. Their advertisements enticed. Observe Stephen A. and fellow analysts dismantle each segment meticulously. It represented a deliberate gamble, encouraging audiences to revisit the perceived injustice in anticipation that broader crowds would engage with reruns, expert discussions, and the swirling speculation of a follow-up clash. Mario Barrios, the incumbent belt holder, retreated to his facility in San Diego bearing a sense of unresolved grievance. He meticulously reviewed each interaction, persuaded that if financial incentives depend on unambiguous successes, he must amplify both his output and ferocity. Barrios intensified his training on close-range engagements, targeted punishing strikes to the midsection, and refined his protective stance, all while upholding the consistency that had propelled him to his current status. He understood that in any future confrontation with a storied opponent, ambiguity must be eradicated. Only rounds of unquestionable superiority that no scorer could misattribute. On various broadcast platforms, Stephen A. Smith's extended tirades motivated a wave of fervent opinion sharers. He delved deeply into the fallacy of the unbiased arbiter and advocated for responsibility across the board. Additional voices in the media echoed this sentiment, labeling the incident as a possible watershed for the discipline. Educational workshops and conferences were arranged in locales like New York and London, exploring the methodologies of adjudication and determining which indicators most accurately reflect a competitor's supremacy. Abruptly, the focus transitioned from determining the victor of that specific encounter to ensuring equitable evaluation in all future contests. Within the sphere of boxing journalism, cohorts of audio hosts and online writers pledged to never permit a contest to conclude without comprehensive breakdowns of each phase. Their evaluations, augmented by visual excerpts and decelerated examinations, evolved into essential references for those pursuing understanding. Whenever a scorer's submission strayed from the general agreement, they spotlighted it promptly, frequently sparking viral campaigns like Judge Reform Now. The activation of the viewership hit an apex. No more mere spectators. Supporters had transformed into dynamic influencers in molding the sport's path.
Mario, ¿esperabas, de este lado para mi Sports Boxing, esperabas el ritmo que traía al final de la pelea de Manny Pacquiao? ¿Esperabas que siguiera tirando tantos golpes y tan activo como lo vimos?
Mario, were you expecting Pacquiao to be
Thus, the narrative persists. Boxing flourishes through strife both within the boundaries and beyond. The tie that resembled a swindle evolved into a broader campaign, uniting perspectives on the imperative for change, for oversight, for a framework where icons cannot be stripped of their earned accolades. Title holders and aspirants alike internalized the message, to battle not merely for hardware, but for the core principles of the pursuit. If you followed along through each development and revelation, share your thoughts in the comments on how you'd evaluate a hypothetical redo. Give a thumbs up if you advocate for transparent scoring, and remember to follow for updates on the evolving tale. Because in this realm, the chronicle endures eternally, awaiting only the signal of the subsequent chime. Drop a comment below and hit me with your answers. Do you agree with Stephen A? Was this a straight-up robbery, or did the judges get it right? If you were scoring the fight, would Pacquiao have taken it unanimously, or was it closer than we think? Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell.